Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. As I'm sure many of you have seen already, my live reaction to the Oscar nominations. And so I just wanted to get on here and give my more in-depth thoughts on each category now that I've had a whole day to process it and then some. So I'll try to keep this under an hour. I know I usually push it with the videos I've done in, these discussion like videos before in the past. So I just want to try to keep things more to a minimum since I've already, given my reaction to a lot of these nominees. But let's start off with the newest category that was added to the Oscars this year, which of course is Best Casting. And the nominees are Hamnet, Marty Supreme, One Battle After Another, The Secret Agent, and Sinners. Now, of course, it's finally great to see Nina Gold get an Oscar nomination, one of the most prolific casting agents in the business. That's cool to see. But what I really like about this category is it isn't just the SAG-5. It really does feel like the casting branch of the Academy is going out of their way to pick movies that made some very inspired choices in the way they cast, some of the supporting characters or the background extras, more specifically like with Hamnet and Marty Supreme. And of course, The Secret Agent, which I think is probably not the best pick on this list, but the most inspired. And I think really indicates what the taste of this branch is. And I think a lot of people were kind of predicting it could be that way. I was hoping Weapons might get in, because they had to recast that entire movie after Pedro Pascal left. So I really do think that this is a great category overall, and I think a really great batch of nominees to kick off this inaugural award. And if I had to pick what I think is winning this category, I do think it's Sinners. There is so much love for this film, as we will get into. As you know, it broke the all-time nomination ceiling with 16 nominations. Absolutely amazing. And I guess I could talk about that a little bit later once we get to some of the, other categories. But I really do think at this point, this is Sinners' award to lose. And then, in the category of makeup and hairstyling, we have Frankenstein, Kokuo, Sinners, The Smashing Machine, and The Ugly Stepsister. Now, when I first saw this category, I knew that this was saying a hell of a lot. Because I was mad that I switch Kokuo out of my predictions for One Battle After Another just because of the Sean Penn makeup at the end, and I immediately regretted that. It makes sense that Kazuhiro got in for The Smashing Machine, of course, a multiple Academy Award winning makeup artist, and it makes sense. The Rock completely transforms in that film into Mark Kerr. But I really do think this says a lot with the Ugly Stepsister nomination, which I haven't seen, but from my understanding is very much a body horror film that I've been meaning to check out. And once I saw that, I didn't process it at the time, but they did not care about Wicked for Good at all. Ding dong, the witch is dead, baby. I mean, wow, I did not expect this movie to get absolutely goose-egged. And I guess that goes to show when you have a subpar sequel, the returns are going to certainly be diminishing, but I don't think anybody expected it to get 0 tech awards. That was absolutely insane to me, but I also think that this nomination is an inkling into the fact that the Academy is moving towards more genre-based films that have, that level of detail and craft. We saw The Substance win last year, which of course is some of the greatest makeup in the history of movies, so we knew that was going to happen, but I do think that this branch is becoming more open to making some very inspired choices, and I guess they always have, just picked what they think objectively is the best makeup. There has been a few hiccups along the way, but I think less so in this category than others. Weapons not getting shortlisted is still a head-scratcher to me. But overall, I really like this batch of nominees. I would have had Wicked for Good in there just for the makeup they do on the Tin Man and the Scarecrow. Yeah, it is a little bit strange. I think it's even better than the last film in that regard, but they just hate that movie. But if I had to predict what's going to win here, I think it's pretty obvious. Frankenstein, I mean, Jacob Elordi turning into the monster was no easy feat, and I think because of not just Elordi's performance, but I really do think the makeup helps him transform in a way that obviously he wouldn't have otherwise. Yet again, the hair, the makeup, it's so extravagant in Frankenstein as well. It's a period piece. This is obviously going to take this award in a cakewalk. And then we have the nominees for Best Original Score, which of course are Jerskin Fendrix for Begonia, Alexandre Desplat for Frankenstein, Max Richter for Hamnet, Johnny Greenwood for One Battle After Another, and Ludwig Göransson for Sinners. Look, I really like Jerskin Fendrix, especially his score in Begonia, but where is Daniel Lopatin? This doesn't make any sense to me. They really hate anything electronic driven, which is really, really unfortunate. You almost would expect that Marty Supreme was going to have a bad day after missing supporting actress, and that right out the gate. But, you know, this is in line with this branch's snobbish tendencies. Even though I really like this list of nominees, it shows a great strength for Begonia as well. I got a little concerned Jesse Plemons was going to get in Best Actor, but obviously when we get to screenplay, I knew that wasn't the case. But still, I really do think that this is obviously going to Ludwig Göransson for a third time. He is on a generational run as a composer. And of course, I'm not putting him in the same pantheon just yet as Hans Zimmer or even John Williams. I mean, most people can't even get to that pedigree, but I really do think he is on his way to becoming his generation's version of these composers. I mean, Hans Zimmer, I don't even think he has 3 Oscars. So, yeah, this is really amazing. I mean, just the genre fusion in that score, it's absolutely some of the most inspired, most mind-blowing mixture of genres that I've ever seen. I could say the same thing about Sinners itself, but yeah, it's one of the greatest film scores of all time, and I think that this is his award to lose. And then, of course, you have the nominees for Best Live Action Short Film, which are Butcher Stain, A Friend of Dorothy, Jane Austen's period drama, The Singers, and 2 People Exchanging Saliva. I only got 2 in this category right. The Singers and 2 People Exchanging Saliva. Yet again, this category is always a toss-up. You don't know what to expect, and honestly, I really can't accurately predict this category right now, having seen literally no nominees. But anyways, I do think animated short is a little bit more interesting, and I think I have a little bit more clarity on that fact. And the nominees in that category are Butterfly, Forever Green, The Girl Who Cried Pearls, Retirement Plan, and The Three Sisters. Now, I think this really says a lot about this category, this branch, how they vote. I really do think that they prefer former nominees, like with the directors of The Girl Who Cried Pearls and Three Sisters, and I should have predicted that. I did predict The Girl Who Cried Pearls, but not the other one, and I think that's always a mainstay now if you are going to be predicting these categories and playing it smart. And in this category, though, I think the runaway winner is going to be Butterfly, and I really highly recommend all of you to check out this masterful short film. Now, there aren't many short films that I've seen, especially animated, that I would give a 5-star rating to, and this is one of less than 10 of them. I think that this is one of the most magnificent accomplishments in short form animation that I've ever seen. It's all done with, like, you know, this pastel aesthetic, and the story behind it too. Once you watch it, you'll understand why this is obviously going to win. I don't really have much more to say about that one, except please go check out Butterfly. I do believe it is on YouTube, so perhaps I'll link it in the description below. And now we get into costume design, and the nominees in that category are Avatar: Fire and Ash, Frankenstein, Hamnet, Marty Supreme, and Sinners. This was so confusing because, look, I look at Avatar, Fire and Ash, and I go, what? Like, I thought it was all CGI. Like, I really found that to be the most bizarre nomination of the entire morning. Not that it's bad. It just is so completely unexpected. But compared to Wicked for Good, another sequel that did not fare well, and this one certainly fared lesser than the previous two films in the series, which is why I was so shocked it got anything outside of visual effects, which, you know, we'll get into it, but you know if you know. And so I really thought that was such a bizarre nomination, and I really do think Wicked deserved it over most of these, if I'm being entirely honest. But you could make the argument that it got recognized last year. There are only so many new costumes, so okay, I can understand that. Whatever. But Avatar, it just seems very bizarre to be putting there. Regardless, I think that this is a pretty significant category in some ways. Ruthie Carter became the most nominated black woman in the history of the Academy Awards with 5 nominations. Now that is something that should be celebrated, and that's just another feather in the cap for Sinners, which is just shattering records left and right in regards to the Academy. But I do think that this one is also going to be Frankenstein as well. The lavish period detail, all the dresses, all the suits, you know, especially modeling it in, I believe, you know, 19th century. Yeah, it's going to probably also easily win this, as well as a lot of technical awards, which I'm sure we will get into in the upcoming categories. And for the nominees in Best Original Song, we have Dear Me from Diane Warren, Relentless. I mean, yeah. Golden from K-Pop Demon Hunters. I Lied to You from Sinners. Sweet Dreams of Joy from Viva Verdi. And Train Dreams from Train Dreams. Now, yet again, this is what I knew. I was like, oh, they hate Wicked for Good. Because The Girl in the Bubble didn't get in. Of course, I don't think anyone was predicting No Place Like Home. But yeah, Diane Warren, you should know at this point, she'll just get a nomination for literally, like, you know, writing something down on a napkin and then submitting it to the Academy. So, you know, it's her own documentary. I don't know. I could care less about seeing Diane Warren at these award shows if I'm being completely transparent with you. I think Golden is going to win this, even though, you know, you could make the argument I Lied to You is going to win, especially with that record number of nominations. It's the centerpiece of the entire film. It's the reason, well, not the only reason, of course, but the main reason that I think Sinners has resonated in a way with so many people. It's the best scene of the entire decade. I really do think that this could win, but right now I'm going to say Golden. But don't be surprised, and honestly, I think I Lied to You should be the winner in this category. Golden, I know, is a big hit, but, you know, it's kind of like whatever to me. I also am glad to see Nick Cave finally get an Oscar nomination. Really want to get into his stuff. I've been hearing a lot of great things about him as an artist throughout the years. So, yeah, but really a solid category overall. And yeah, so I'm going to say right now K-Pop Demon Hunters takes this. And then in the category of Best Documentary Feature, we have The Alabama Solution, Come and See Me in the Good Light, Cutting Through Rocks, Mr. Nobody Against Putin, and The Perfect Neighbor. So this is really interesting because I got so many of these wrong. I think I only predicted The Alabama Solution and The Perfect Neighbor. Even though I hear a lot of these documentaries are very deserving, this category is a crapshoot, as always. But I think it is pretty obvious to me. I'm looking forward to watching The Alabama Solution and Cutting Through Rocks and Come See Me in the Good Light. But the winner here is going to be The Perfect Neighbor. This is probably one of the most... this is the most impactful documentary of the entire year. And just how it's put together, how it's assembled, what it is able to capture is unlike anything I have ever seen in the medium of film, but most certainly in the medium of the documentary. And in the category of Best Documentary Short Film, we have All the Empty Rooms, Armed Only with a Camera, The Life and Death of Brent Renault. Children No More, Were and Are Gone, The Devil is Busy, and Perfectly Estrangedness. Yeah, I've seen all the empty rooms, and I think this one is going to be the winner. I got a few of these in this category, right? So give myself a little pat on the back. But yet again, you can never predict this 5 for 5. I mean, it's about school shootings and in the aftermath of that, and in the rooms and the spaces that are left vacant by these children who were lost in these unfortunate massacres and tragedies. So, you know, that's going to really resonate with a lot of people. I know it certainly struck a chord with me when I saw it, so I really do think that this is probably an easy favorite to win the Oscar in this category. And now we get to International Feature Film, which, if you saw my reaction, this is probably the biggest snub of the entire day. One of the worst snubs that the Academy has had in years. But the nominees in this category, of course, are Brazil for The Secret Agent, France for It Was Just an Accident, Norway for Sentimental Value, Spain, I believe, for Surat, and Tanzania for The Voice of Hind Rajab. Now, I look at this category and it's like, you know, I get it. Like, these are all really acclaimed films, but why the fuck is No Other Choice not there? They really have it out for Park Chan-wook, man. I really do feel like Parasite winning Best Picture, which, don't get me wrong, has changed the tides and shifted, you know, how and what movies are being rewarded the biggest prizes at these ceremonies. There's no doubt about that. But it almost feels like, oh, you know, this is our Korean friend. We like Korean people. Like, that's what that award feels like to me. And of course, it means so much more than that. It's one of the greatest films ever made. But from the Academy's standpoint, I really just don't understand why they have never embraced another South Korean movie. Like, ever. Especially from who you could argue is their greatest director. So, yet again, this to me is the Academy looking, like, literally ignoring a flat-out masterpiece when it's staring them right in the fucking face. And that is just unbelievably unforgivable. And I really do think I would have taken out Surat, personally. I really like that film. But that's the thing, though. Like, I have to be happy that The Voice of Hind Rajab got in here, which is one of the best movies of 2025, unquestionably, and maybe the most important film to come out last year. And look, you know, Hania is a former nominee, especially in this category, so I had a feeling they were going to do this, and so I can't be upset it got in, because this is one of my favorite movies of the year. But I don't know, like, if it were up to me, I would have that win. But it's just sad that it's at the expense of maybe the best movie of the year, right? I don't know. It's really just such a crapshoot. But if I had to guess, I know Brazil has the wind in their sails right now, and deservedly so. I mean, the fact that Brazil got 2 movies in the Best Picture 2 years in a row is absolutely unprecedented. So we are at a new level of recognition and appreciation for Brazilian cinema, and I couldn't be happier about that. I love Brazil, but the thing is, I do feel that considering how strong Sentimental Value is, I would honestly predict this to win, because this is a top 5 in Best Picture. Maybe the Academy doesn't think that way anymore, where it's like, well, you know, this movie is in the top category, so we're going to reward it. But this has always been a default. The only time that this has ever diverted was last year. And the thing with that, sure, Emilia Perez got 13 nominations, but there was that backlash with Carla Sofia Gascon. And of course, the love for I'm Still Here was certainly undeniably strong and powerful the first time around. And I do think that it is possible Secret Agent wins here, but besides that one time, and that was the thing, it was in Best Picture, so it's not like they didn't go with a Best Picture nominee. But I just feel like Sentimental Value is so far out front in this race that it would be hard for me to predict The Secret Agent to win in this category. So I am going to predict right now that this goes to Norway for Sentimental Value. And then you have the nominees for Best Animated Feature Film, which are Arco, Elio, K-Pop Demon Hunters, Little Amelie, or The Character of Rain, and Zootopia 2. 5 out of 5, as expected. This was one of the easiest categories to predict at this year's Oscars, and something I did not realize until after the fact, but Natalie Portman has become the first acting nominee, and winner for that matter, to also be nominated in animated feature, which is a unique stat that no one else has. I didn't even realize that they were crediting her with the producer credit after, you know, coming out of Cannes with it. I knew she was like involved in the English dub, obviously. I saw her there at TIFF, but I just was like shocked to find that out. I guess I was so biffed by No Other Choice that I didn't notice they called Natalie Portman's name. But shout out to Natalie Portman, really, that's amazing. And even though I didn't love the movie, I am very happy for her that she got that. As well as Elio. I mean, I loved Elio, and I thought that this was a no-brainer for this category to get nominated, so it's really glad to see that despite the middling box office performance, the disastrous box office performance, I should say, that Pixar still got their movie in at the end of the day. Yet again, it was, probably more of a lackluster year for animation. Besides the anime stuff, which, you know, they weren't going to touch with a 10-foot pole. They weren't going to sit down and watch Chainsaw Man. I mean, I certainly couldn't sit down and watch all of Demon Slayer. That's like 4 seasons deep. So I wouldn't expect the Academy would either. I think this is going to be K-Pop Demon Hunters, though. It seems pretty easy. But I really do think that Little Amelie should be winning this Oscar. This is by far, I think, not just one of the best animated movies of the year, but one of the best movies of the year, period. But yeah, I think the wind is certainly in the sails for the K-pop gang, and I think that is what is going to take this award. And then the nominees for Best Production Design are Frankenstein, Hamnet, Marty Supreme, One Battle After Another, and Sinners. Now, this is crazy to me that One Battle After Another got in, especially over Wicked for Good. I mean, come on. I know they already awarded it last year, but objectively speaking, the sets in Wicked for Good are more impressive than One Battle After Another. That being said, it is a very interesting nomination, especially for a contemporary film. Maybe it's the basement that he walks through to the Christmas Adventurers Club, or the house that Bob and Willow live in. I mean, there's some really, really interesting points when it comes to the production design of that film, but totally unexpected. Makes sense that Jack Fisk got in for Marty Supreme, especially the way they capture 1950s New York City. It's very, very well deserved. It would have been nice to see Fantastic Four: The First Steps get in here. That's some of the most inspired retro-futuristic production design I've ever seen, but, you know, it is what it is. I think that this is easily going to be Frankenstein once again. I mean, the sets are just so captivating and grand and just everything that you'd want out of production design. It's so epic. It's so period-oriented and detailed in all the best ways you can imagine. I mean, just for Frankenstein's lab alone, this one is kind of untouchable, I think, in this category. And I think that this would have, you know, if Wicked was as strong, this still would have won the Oscar, I think, pretty handedly. So yet again, another technical category that I think Frankenstein is going to absolutely dominate in. And the nominees for Best Film Editing are F1, Marty Supreme, One Battle After Another, Sentimental Value, and Sinners. And I think that this was the moment during the announcements where I was like, okay, so Sentimental Value's top 5 movie in picture. Like, the fact that it got this nomination is huge. And honestly, it didn't really need this nomination. I find and I've watched it again, I think it's absolutely one of the best films of the year, and I would not begrudge anybody for thinking that. But, you know, some of the strange dips to black feel so unnecessary. But I do think it really, more than anything, especially this category, shows strength for movies where they might not have it otherwise. So I think that this is, you know, a great sign for that film. Even though I would have nominated something much different, probably like No Other Choice, but, you know, fuck me, I guess. I think really the winner here. I know F1's been getting a lot of steam, but I do think and hope that it will be One Battle After Another, because I think that is some of the most perfect editing that I have ever seen. I think One Battle After Another is the definition of a perfectly edited film. Especially for that last car chase sequence, the way that was stitched together, that's on the level of, like, you know, The French Connection, or, you know, some of the all-time great film editing within, you know, the action movie genre. Seems pretty easy to me, but yet again, people like when cars go vroom, so who am I to say? But right now, I'm going to predict One Battle After Another to win in Best Film Editing. And the nominees for Best Sound are F1, Frankenstein, One Battle After Another, Sinners, and Ahart. Now, this is absolutely based. The fact, you know, I didn't love Ahart, but the sound design is some of the most impeccable and impressive and nail-biting and just jarring of the entire year in all the best ways. It's so detailed in its scope, especially with all the raves and all the speakers and stuff. I've been predicting that this was going to get in, considering the overwhelming support on the long list when they were announced. Now, I think the whole idea of it getting into Best Picture was so overblown, and I knew that immediately. I'm like, guys, let's calm the fuck down. Like, this is not getting into Best Picture. But I did have a feeling that it was going to sneak into a craft category, and I knew if it was going to sneak into any category, it would be this one, because, of course, the music branch hates electro-driven scores. But yeah, I think this is extremely deserving nomination for Ahart, and I wouldn't even be upset if it won. Though I think this is between two movies. I think Sinners isn't out of the realm of possibility of winning, especially considering how strong it is in literally every other category it was nominated in. So this could certainly win, the way they mix in the music and some of the audios, how it's kind of thrown in the back when they're talking. It's a really, really interesting sound design, but they like cars going vroom, so my guess and prediction in this category would be F1, and I think it's a pretty deserving nomination. I don't know if I'd nominate it. I certainly wouldn't give it the win, but it's certainly not anything I'm going to begrudge it for. So yeah, I would say the Academy is probably going to go with F1 in this category. And then we have the nominees for Best Visual Effects, which are Avatar, Fire and Ash, F1, Jurassic World Rebirth, The Lost Bus, and Sinners. Now, this category is a little shocking for a few reasons. One, they hate Wicked, which isn't shocking at this point, but some thought maybe it would get in here, and it didn't need to, and it didn't, so that's fine. Two, the fact that Superman did not get in, which I thought would have easily been a shoo-in nomination, especially considering James Gunn's other movies got in, like the Guardians films. But the fact of the matter is, not a single superhero movie was nominated at the Oscars. Like, they literally do not care anymore, or just the fatigue is seemingly getting a little bit more stronger in the industry, and I think that is very telling, the fact that Superman is missing here. But three, this was the moment I realized that Sinners was getting 16 nominations. Because I don't want to say it didn't need visual effects, because the Michael B. Jordan stuff is really, really impressive, but by all accounts, it didn't need to get into this category, but it did anyways. And I think, yet again, I don't think it's going to win, but the fact that it is here is truly saying a lot. Jurassic World finally got in. I don't know what that's about, but I did get an explanation on it, which, you know, I'm sure it is deserving. I didn't see it. I just heard it was not that good of a movie. And The Lost Bus was to be expected, especially with the fires. A lot of it is digitally created, and I do have to see that movie. We know what's winning in this category, and do I really even have to say it? I don't know. It is what it is. Even though I'm not a fan of the film, it's kind of hard to deny how masterful the visual effect work is in Avatar, Fire and Ash. It is the movie. Let's move on. And in Best Cinematography, we have Frankenstein, Marty Supreme, One Battle After Another, Sinners, and Train Dreams. Now, this is going to be very interesting what ends up happening. Now, of course, these 5 nominees were to be expected. These were the same as the ASC list, and so, you know, no surprises here. And of course, Darius Khondji is an Academy favorite. He is an industry veteran, so it makes sense he gets in for Marty Supreme over, let's say, Lucas Zhao, who has only gotten in for black and white movies and was brutally snubbed for The Zone of Interest a couple years ago. But I really do have a feeling that this could go one of 3 ways. I do feel like Dan Lawson could win for Frankenstein because it is so sweeping. The camera work is exceptional despite people saying that there's a Netflix sheen to it. I don't get it. It looks phenomenal, alright? The cinematography, the camera work is exceptional. It could go to Autumn Durald Arkapaw for Sinners, who in turn would be the first woman to win the Oscar for Best Cinematography, which would be amazing, especially considering all the support for Sinners. Or it could go to Adolfo Veloso for Train Dreams, which I think is objectively the best shot film of the entire year. Every frame of that film is a painting. But I am going to go with Sinners because, you know, it has the shot of the year. It has one of the greatest scenes in the history of movies, and that would really be a great record to break and win, and very deserving regardless. I mean, there's some really great tracks throughout that movie that I really, really appreciate. Outside of the I Lied to You sequence, there is so much great camera work all across the board in Sinners, and just, you know, it's clearly number 2, if not number 1. So yeah, I'm going to go with that. And now let's get into the above the line categories at the Academy Awards, starting with Best Adapted Screenplay, which are as follows: Begonia, Frankenstein, Hamnet, One Battle After Another, and Train Dreams. Now, this was the expected 5, but come on, man. You're going to snub Park Chan-wook for No Other Choice? I think that's the best screenplay of the entire year, but, you know, they don't care what I think, right? I'm not voting in the writer's branch. But this is a great batch of nominees regardless. Some of the best movies of the year. I would have virtually all of these in screenplay. So I think they did a really great job overall outside of No Other Choice. I think we all know what's going to win here. Paul Thomas Anderson, One Battle After Another. Let's move on. No discussion to be had. And then we get into Best Original Screenplay. And the nominees are Blue Moon, It Was Just an Accident, Marty Supreme, Sentimental Value, and Sinners. Seeing Blue Moon there, I was predicting it early on, and then I kind of shifted around. The Julia Roberts shout out for Sorry Baby did not matter at all. This was going to Robert Kaplow for Blue Moon, this 5th nomination slot. And I think it's features some of the best dialogue of the entire year. Ethan Hawke yapping his ass off for over an hour and a half. So I really do think that this was quite the deserving nomination. But the fact that this was the one Oscar nomination that Jafar Panahi got, and that kind of hurt a little bit considering how things went on later down the line in the other categories. But, you know, it's still great to see Jafar Panahi finally become an Oscar nominee. I knew if it was going to get nominated in one category outside of international feature, this was an absolute lock, and that proved to be the case when this category was announced. I really do think that there were so many contending here. Like Weapons would have been very cool to see Zach Cregger get in there, but he's working on Resident Evil. He's busy. He's not campaigning. That's probably why. If he had gotten in, I would have predicted perhaps Amy Madigan to win Best Supporting Actress. But as it stands in this category, we all know who's winning this one too. Ryan Coogler for Sinners. It's going to be a great moment to finally see this man get his flowers. This is the culmination of everything that he has built up his entire career. I love all of his movies, and this is easily his best one, as the Academy so recognized. And now we are going to get into the acting, directing, and picture categories. And for these ones, I would like to give you the nominees that I would have voted in these categories. So I think that's going to be an interesting discussion. But let's get into the first award that was announced, which was Best Supporting Actress. Of course, we have Elle Fanning for Sentimental Value, as well as Inga Ibsdottir Lilas for Sentimental Value, Amy Madigan for Weapons, Wunmi Mosaku for Sinners, and Teyana Taylor for One Battle After Another. Now, even though I have my own personal picks, I think that this is a bang-up category. I really don't think they missed too many beats with this one. I mean, the fact that Elle Fanning got in, missing the BAFTA shortlist, really showed signs of strength for Sentimental Value. That was the first sign that both her and Inga Ibsdottir Lilas got in. Very, very well-deserved nominations, if I ever could say so. And yeah, this one is going to be an interesting race. I do think, at the moment, I will predict Teyana Taylor for One Battle After Another, because she is in the seeming Best Picture frontrunner. Though I do think that Inga Ibsdottir Lilas has a shot. Because Sentimental Value is so strong, this could be a surprise. But, you know, she wasn't nominated at SAG, and maybe that doesn't matter. Honestly, I'm kind of wondering if SAG is a non-factor for international movies at this point, because we could talk about supporting actor, and who I think is going to win there. I don't think this is out of the realm of possibility, but I will still say Teyana Taylor for One Battle After Another. But if I had to give you my nominees for Best Supporting Actress, I would choose Glenn Close for Wake Up Dead Man, Elle Fanning for Sentimental Value, Inga Ibsdottir Lilas for Sentimental Value, Amy Madigan for Weapons, and Yom Hayran for No Other Choice. And then we move on to Best Supporting Actor, and the nominees in that category are Benicio del Toro for One Battle After Another, Jacob Elordi for Frankenstein, Delroy Lindo for Sinners, Sean Penn for One Battle After Another, and Stellan Skarsgård for Sentimental Value. Now, this was probably the biggest shocking nomination of the entire morning. Delroy Lindo finally getting in for Best Supporting Actor at the expense of Paul Mescal, which is absolutely insane to me, because I'm like, how do I reckon with this fact? Because Delroy Lindo is obviously very deserving in that film, and I think the standout supporting performance. And of course, shout out to Wunmi Mosaku, who I am glad got in as supporting actress as well. But yeah, the fact that the Academy finally recognized him after snubbing him for, I think, The Cider House Rules. Not a great film, but, you know, Michael Caine won, and I think he's more of a standout in that than Michael Caine is. But most egregiously, The Five Bloods. That one really hurt. That was one of my favorite performances of that year. So the fact that he missed really, really put a damper on my perception of that category and my perception of the Academy. So it is great to see an older veteran actor like Delroy Lindo finally get his flowers. But Paul Mescal missing does not make any sense to me at all. That was one of the best performances of the year. And it really is a shame that he missed this category. I would have taken out Benicio del Toro, who obviously is very memorable in One Battle After Another, and, you know, has some of the best scenes in that film. But I don't know, I just think what Mescal does is so emotionally demanding, and he rises to the occasion and then some. But yeah, I do think that this category, who knows who's going to win. We could certainly see Stellan Skarsgård finally get his Oscar for his performance in Sentimental Value, but we don't know which way the wind is blowing yet this awards season. And even though Sean Penn already has 2 Oscars, I think he gives the best performance, the best supporting performance of the year. Also want to shout out Jacob Elordi for finally getting an Oscar nomination. I think it really says a lot that the Academy is recognizing genre films like this. They nominated Frankenstein's monster in Best Supporting Actor. And for someone who is at that stage in his career, you know, this perceived pretty boy, to kind of, you know, change his whole appearance and disappear into an iconic literary character, I think that this is amazing. I know he's through the moon about it. So yeah, this is an absolutely great phenomenal nomination. But if I had to pick the nominees for Best Supporting Actor, they would be Jacob Elordi for Frankenstein, Andrew Garfield for After the Hunt, Paul Mescal for Hamnet, Sean Penn for One Battle After Another, and Adam Sandler for Jay Kelly. Yes, it is very unfortunate that the Academy continues to ignore Adam Sandler, one of the best dramatic actors out there, when he really does commit himself. Still, he should have gotten in for Uncut Gems. That's still the bigger snub in my opinion. But I think that he gives some of the best and most subtle work of his entire career, some of the most emotionally affecting work of his entire career in Jay Kelly. So, unfortunate not to see him here. But I don't know, this race is really hard to call. I think I'm just going to say that Stellan Skarsgård is going to get his first Oscar for Sentimental Value, but we'll see. I think it's going to be very telling who wins a BAFTA in this category before we say for certain, but I have a feeling that the BAFTAs are going to take Stellan's side on this one. And then we get into Best Actor in a Leading Role, and the nominees are Timothée Chalamet for Marty Supreme, Leonardo DiCaprio for One Battle After Another, Ethan Hawke in Blue Moon, Michael B. Jordan in Sinners, and Wagner Moura in The Secret Agent. As to be expected, the top 5, Jesse Plemons doesn't make it in for Begonia, which in any other year he should have. But this is a very tight lineup, and I am happy overall. The fact that Michael B. Jordan is finally an Oscar nominee absolutely warms my heart. Who doesn't love that guy? This is really the momentous occasion for his collaborations with Ryan Coogler. This was the moment, the right time to finally reward and recognize what a great talent Michael B. Jordan is, especially playing two extremely distinct characters from one another. It is a tour de force in a lot of ways, and I'm really happy to see him in here. Even though I wouldn't nominate Wagner Moura personally, the fact that he's the first Brazilian male actor to get nominated at the Academy Awards is a huge deal, especially coming off of the coattails of Fernando Torres and I'm Still Here. This is big day for Brazil and a big day for Wagner Moura, so congratulations on that nomination. And Ethan Hawke finally getting his first Best Actor nomination, which should have happened with First Reform, but they didn't care about that. He should have won for that, and I think he should win for this. Now, I do think Timothée Chalamet is out front, but when I saw that Blue Moon got nominated for Screenplay, I was like, well, Ethan Hawke is obviously getting nominated, and one has to wonder if all the Academy members are required to watch these movies to vote on them this year. Is there a scenario where Ethan Hawke comes out on top? Because I think that's one of the all-time great film performances. I truly do. It's one of the most inspired acting performances I've ever seen, where he's making one interesting choice after the next. It's so surprising and so interesting. We have to see how the season plays out. Timothée Chalamet won the Golden Globe. But I would not count Ethan Hawke out of this race. I do think that there is a scenario where he ends up prevailing in the end. But right now, I don't want to make that bold of prediction. So I am going to predict Timothée Chalamet for Marty Supreme, who by all means would be a very deserving winner. He would be the second youngest in this category to win. Apparently he's the most nominated actor by the age of 30, which is pretty incredible, but not surprising considering how legendary of a run he has been on. The past few years of his career, honestly. And I think that would be a very deserving win for one of the absolute best films and performances of the year, for that matter. But if I had to pick my Best Actor nominees, they would be as follows: Timothée Chalamet for Marty Supreme, Daniel Day-Lewis for Anemone, Ethan Hawke for Blue Moon, Jonathan Majors for Magazine Dreams, and Dylan O'Brien for Twinless. Now, okay, Jonathan Majors, I get it. I don't want to necessarily, reward him for, everything that we know at this current moment. And so, I'm just going off the performance alone. That is one of the absolute finest roles of the entire year. But in his stead, if we are trying to avoid all of that, I would pick Michael B. Jordan for Sinners as well. So, that leads us on to the Best Actress category, which the nominees are Jessie Buckley for Hamnet, Rose Byrne for If I Had Legs I'd Kick You, Kate Hudson for Song Sung Blue, Renata Reinsve for Sentimental Value, and Emma Stone for Begonia, which I think this is another bang-up lineup. But Kate Hudson is kind of, of course, the sore thumb, so to speak. And I'm not saying that she isn't great in that film. She is obviously the best part of Song Sung Blue, which is fairly conventional fare by all accounts. But I don't know, like, it would have been cool, it would have been cooler to see Chase Infinity get in for her debut role in One Battle After Another, but it makes sense. She's 25 years old. You could argue that she's borderline supporting in that film. So it ended up making sense that a veteran like Kate Hudson would get her first Best Actress nomination. So that's really cool, her first since Almost Famous. And whoever's been predicting that since the end of the year, props to you. That's all I'll say there. And other than that, I really do think that this is such a great, fantastic lineup. The other four is who I would have in Best Actress, so I might as well tell you what my picks for Best Actress are in that case, and that would be Jessie Buckley for Hamnet, Rose Byrne for If I Had Legs I'd Kick You, Saja Kalani for The Voice of Henry Rajab, Renata Reinsve for Sentimental Value, and Emma Stone for Begonia. It really is unfortunate, though. I would have liked to seen Amanda Seyfried get in over Chase Infinity and Kate Hudson for The Testament of Anne Lee. But that movie went nowhere and no one really cared about it. So that's Best Actress for you. I think it's pretty easy to see who's winning this. This is probably the most no-brainer category out of all of these, and that is Jessie Buckley for Hamnet in one of the most all-encompassing performances that you will ever see in the cinema. So, that takes us now to the nominees for Best Director of a Motion Picture. And they are Chloe Zhao for Hamnet, Josh Safdie for Marty Supreme, Paul Thomas Anderson for One Battle After Another, Joachim Trier for Sentimental Value, and Ryan Coogler for Sinners. This was so hard to predict, but maybe we should have been more practical and just put in one international director. But this is the first time since Moulin Rouge, Baz Luhrmann not getting nominated for that film, that a Best Picture movie that premiered at Cannes did not also get a Best Director nomination. Now, when we look at Moulin Rouge, the one who took Baz Luhrmann's place was David Lynch for Mulholland Drive, which also premiered at Cannes. So it's not like Kleber Mendoza Filo or Jafar Panahi not getting in here really is that surprising. Well, Panahi for a whole other reason, and I lost money on that too, but what can you do? But honestly, I think this is an extremely based category. I would have predicted all of these myself, or I would have nominated them, and even if I was like one off or whatever, they're all very, very deserving of these nominations. And yeah, if I had to pick one here for myself, I would say Ryan Coogler for Sinners. But I think everyone knows that Paul Thomas Anderson is finally getting his directing Oscar. Even if One Battle After Another doesn't win picture, I do think that this is Paul Thomas Anderson's award to lose. Now, if I was voting in the Best Director category, my choice for the nominees would be Josh Safdie for Marty Supreme, Park Chan-wook for No Other Choice, who I would pick to win, Paul Thomas Anderson for One Battle After Another, Be Gone for Resurrection, and Ryan Coogler for Sinners. So as you can see, lines pretty well, and I think this really says a lot. I think in a year of 5 Best Picture nominees, this also would have been the 5 in director. It would have matched up perfectly, which makes sense considering all the nominations that these movies got. And that will take us now to the Best Picture lineup, in which the nominees are Begonia, F1, Frankenstein, Hamnet, Marty Supreme, One Battle After Another, The Secret Agent, Sentimental Value, Sinners, and Train Dreams. And now we get to one of the most contentious categories of the morning, especially that F1 nomination, which absolutely blew my mind. And look, weirdly enough, I do prefer, at this moment, I'm going to rewatch The Secret Agent. I do prefer F1 a little bit more than Secret Agent as a film, but honestly, I would rather see The Secret Agent in here than F1. Because, look, The Secret Agent is actually about, the Brazilian military dictatorship and how that affected, intellectuals and people who spoke out against the government. And F1's a fun racing movie. Like, it's so uninspired, and it's not to say it wasn't made with a lot of heart. It obviously wears its heart on its sleeve, but it's such a generic story. It's like, yeah, it works for what it is, but really, Best Picture? I mean, we shouldn't be surprised Ford v Ferrari got in, though that had a lot more precursors than just PGA. But the Academy loves their feel-good dad movies, and so I think that this checked the box. This was obviously the 10th place slot, and I think it was just an accident. Would have been so much more deserving, or no other choice, of course, is what I would put here. And even Weapons would be great, especially getting that PGA nomination as well, but here is F1, and, even with this being said, if you remember my review, I really like F1. And with that in mind, I think that this might be the greatest Best Picture lineup of all time after 1975. There's not a weak movie to be found here, and so even though I have my quibbles and think that it could have been even better, I do think that this is one of the most solid and just absolutely behemothly strong lineups that we have ever seen in this category. Now, the real nail-biter here is we all thought One Battle After Another was going to steamroll the entire season, and it still very well could. But Sinners, I mean, look, we have to put this into perspective. For a vampire genre movie made by a black filmmaker with a predominantly black cast to shatter the nomination ceilings by 2 is one of the most incredible signs of progress that this industry has ever seen. Especially considering that Oscars So White was only 10 years ago. We really have come a long way. And this is not to pat ourselves on the back entirely, because, Hollywood still has its issues in regards to representation. But I do feel like that controversy did eventually build to this moment. And what a glorious moment that it is. I couldn't be happier for Ryan Coogler and the entire cast and crew of Sinners. It really does warm my heart, honestly. And, Ryan Coogler seems like such a forthright and genuine guy that this is such a huge moment. And I couldn't be happier for all of them. But you have to wonder. I mean, sure, Emilia Perez got 13 nominations. There was the backlash there, didn't win. La La Land got, it tied the all-time record at the time, and it still lost to Moonlight. So, I do want to say One Battle After Another is still the front runner to win in this category. It's Paul Thomas Anderson's moment, as we've been talking this whole season, and it would make sense, right? But I think that even if Paul Thomas Anderson wins Best Director, Sinners could win Picture. I mean, I really don't think that it's out of the realm of possibility. And remember back a few years ago when the Banshees of Inisherin won the Golden Globe for a musical comedy over Everything Everywhere All at Once, which ended up steamrolling the Oscars. Now, I don't think this is the same scenario at all, but the fact that Hamnet won the Globe and Sinners didn't, I don't think shows a sign of weakness for Sinners. I mean, the fact that Paul Mescal missed should say a lot about the strength of Hamnet, where Sinners literally got in every single category, or virtually every single category it could have. And yet again, this is such a cultural juggernaut in a way we've never seen. And we've never seen the Academy embrace a movie like this to the level that they have. And I think it's absolutely amazing. I think it deserves almost every single one of its nominations, which I usually can't say for a movie with this many nominations, but I completely get it. And I guess I will give my lineup for Best Picture as well. Not because this doesn't necessarily spoil my top 10 list, right? I'm not ranking them in order, and I'm only picking from the movies that were on the list of the eligible films for Best Picture at the 98th Academy Awards. So, if I was voting for Best Picture, I would pick Bring Her Back, Frankenstein, Hamnet, Little Amelie or the Character of Rain, Marty Supreme, No Other Choice, One Battle After Another, Sinners, The Voice of Hind Rajab, and Weapons. So yet again, a lot of overlap there, but I do think that the No Other Choice thing is absolutely terrible. As is, it was just an accident. But still, the fact that Neon got 2 international movies and Best Picture is certainly nothing to scoff at. But to think that they could have gotten 4 and 5 in international feature, I guess we were just putting all our eggs in one basket, so to speak. And I think maybe that was a bit of an unreasonable expectation for such a small studio. But they still did incredibly well. They did get Panahi in the screenplay, and they did get 4 out of the 5 nominees in international features, so I think it was a big day for them. Warner Brothers got like 30 nominations or something. It's crazy. So they're having quite the day, and I think it is between the 2 Warner Brothers pictures. I think for right now, I am going to say One Battle After Another, with the caveat that Sinners could eventually end up winning the top prize come March 15th. But yeah, guys, those are my thoughts on the 98th Academy Award nominations. I went way over the time I thought I was going to, but thank you for sticking around if you've gotten to this point in the video, and please smash the like button if you enjoyed what I had to say. If you want to see more reviews, well, not reviews, but more videos like this one, I'm going to be discussing the winners when that happens, and stay tuned for so much more. I still am working on my retrospective for the best films of 2015, which I'm very behind on, but I assure you will be coming your way very, very soon. I'm going to do the last couple of TIFF reviews, which I've never taken this long to do, but life's crazy, man, and yeah, I'm glad that I could get this one out to you in the meantime. So until then, stay well, and I will talk to you guys very soon.